I didn't have hobbies or
Right.
health or much else than work and family for 20 years.
Welcome to the AZ Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Hamid Chojai, a tech enthusiast and entrepreneur. Recently, my wife and I sold our software companies and we're investing $10 million in Arizona's tech ecosystem. As a way to know what's happening in Arizona, every week I get to sit down with some exceptionally talented people who are doing some cool shit. All right, let's go. I'm here with the famous Egghead, founder and CEO of Scaling Point, a marketing consulting firm. I got to, get my words. You making me nervous, Greg. Plus the founder of Gregslist, which is pretty awesome. Lists every startup in software in Phoenix and now 10 other cities, which is pretty cool. Plus, plus, former head of marketing at Infusionsoft, Act, Sales Logic. You practically created, the sort of a lot of the marketing, digital marketing trends that we have today. It's going to be a fun discussion, and I can't wait. I've been wanting to have you on the podcast since the first day, and of course, you had moved to Texas, so we're going to talk about that. Mm-hmm. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Hamid.
How are you?
It's great to be here in Arizona.
Yeah.
And I love what you're doing with the podcast. You're doing a great job. I've heard them all here. So,
yeah. You're the one.
No, actually, I've talked to a whole bunch of people in town this week. I'm in town all week, and I've heard many people quote podcast episodes. So it's making a difference. So thank you for helping them tell their stories. Thank you for the very kind words. Now that I have that recorded, my wife and kids will, I could share that with them and all of that. So yes, I've been part of the software ecosystem here in Phoenix for 25 years and moved to Dallas a couple of years ago, but I still am back pretty often. And of course it stopped with COVID, but we Zoomed, didn't we? So that's what we did.
Yeah. So there's so much I want to talk to you about, but and so much of it goes back to your original experience, building these companies that have become icons. But before we talk about those, you're also like one of the most connected founders now because of your Gregslist website, which is gregslist.com. Lists every software company in Arizona. It started out just Arizona, but now 10 other cities. So how did that come about, first of all? And I want to start there because there's so many interesting things going on here that you know about that probably no one else does because you know all the founders. So
I don't know them all, and it's hard to keep up.
Yeah.
And I was with Infusionsoft from 2011 through the end of 2015. We grew from about 15 million to 100 million. So I was the chief marketing officer and helped grow that with Clayt, who you've had on the podcast.
Yeah.
And an amazing team. And when I left, because I'm kind of an early stage guy, all my magic tricks work earlier on, and they didn't work at 100 million. I helped grow two companies to 100 million here in Phoenix. When I left that Friday, people started texting me, Brad Janenga and others that weekend saying, hey, can we meet on Monday? And can you meet this other guy? And can you do that? And for 3 months after I left Infusionsoft, I just went around and helped my friends and then new friends who are software CEOs. The modern problem in software is we can make software easy. It's always been hard, but that's not the hard part. It's getting customers, revenue, and growth.
Right.
And I had just done that, so they said, you should talk to this guy. So for 2 months, I just went around, had long coffees with people at their whiteboards in their office, talking growth strategy and with them. And I literally had a list of the people I met in Evernote. And people said, we ought to talk to these people. It got to 100 founders of software companies here in Phoenix. And I would tell people like you and Clayt and Pat and others, there's 100 software companies here in town. This is early 2016. And they'd say, no, there isn't. No, there's not. Yeah, there can't be. That's impossible. And I'd send my list.
Because we each knew about like 4 or 5 of them, right?
Right. And you were very active in the ecosystem as well. And you guys had events, and you could see another 10. But that's the thing about startup software companies and growth stage companies. You can't see them until they get big funding and they have their name on the building, which is, in most ecosystems, maybe 20% of all software companies are visible and known to people. 80% you just don't see. They're Axosoft that didn't raise money and served a particular market. You guys literally have your name on the building without the funding, but that's not very typical. So people just didn't know about them. And it actually surprised me. I kept finding more and more. So it actually came from my helping and serving and networking. I was sharing the list, and I was the connector. So the founders were telling me, you can't do it here in Phoenix. It's not a software town, and there's no talented funding. And all the talented funding, and their boss was following me around saying, where is everybody?
Yeah.
So I was doing the email connections, and finally said, I'm just going to publish my list that I was sharing with everybody. So it started as 120 companies. Now there are 720-something companies on Gregslist Phoenix, which include, and Gregslist Arizona right now. So they're real live, active SaaS app, marketplace, fintech, software companies, not software services, and not all tech, not every startup. Software companies, commercial software companies.
It's an awesome list, and I was surprised in the latest stats that Scottsdale wins sort of like with the most number of software companies in it, which I would have guessed would have been Phoenix. And
to be honest, it's always been Scottsdale, because
really?
we have North Scottsdale, which was the 90s, where software companies went, and then downtown Scottsdale, where there's a ton of software companies down there. So Scottsdale's always been winning. The surprise is Phoenix has come up from all the ones downtown that didn't used to be there before Brad and Heidi went downtown.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying Phoenix has given us a run for our money. Oh,
that's
interesting.
Correct.
I would have guessed it was the other way, but that's good to know.
That's right. So Scottsdale has been the center, and Phoenix is picking up. And so in the last 10 years, there's a lot more going on in Phoenix as people want to be downtown and central Phoenix. There's a lot more going on in the East Valley than there was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So
what are some of the most interesting companies that you've talked about? And we'll wrap that up with as part of the sort of Gregslist conversation.
Yeah.
Do you have a list?
I knew you
I love it.
Yes.
That's awesome. He's got a
shockingly,
secondary
Greg
list.
has a list. No, I'm actually kind of a list guy. So that was people are like, so you just make this list and then I curated the list and I updated it every month for 4 years. And people are like, that's a little strange, but we're all strange. We're all abnormal in this crazy software business.
I love it, though.
So there's cool startups that are happening. By the way, there's a lot of really cool startups coming into the fold. And they're not just, hey, I have an idea and a deck and someday I'll build it and so forth. They're actually live with product and first customers and thinking big and playing in AI and verticals and other things like that. But a couple, and I've met with a bunch of them, and I help a lot of them out. So they're the ones that need the most help, not the ones that are super funded and have VPs of everything.
Yeah.
It's the early guys.
Yeah, let's talk about some of them.
Yeah, so the early ones like AlgoFace, which makes not facial recognition, but facial analysis technology that plugs into all kinds of applications, from cosmetics to emotion sensing to
Andrew's company, right?
Yes, Andrew Bart.
Yeah.
And that's, once you get, you squint and you hear, what is this thing again and what is it not? And you realize, oh, that's going to be big. And it's not we know that you're Hamid when we see your face.
Right.
It's other like cosmetic companies that want to do software.
I got a demo of their technology.
It's really cool.
Because you can take a picture of yourself and then put makeup on as if like you're trying out different makeup products or whatever. And I was like, wow, that seems like it should be a no-brainer. Yeah, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, so that's actually got cool tech.
Yeah.
And Phoenix isn't known for cool tech. We're kind of a B2B town and yet another software for this industry. Over half of software companies on Gregslist here in Phoenix are industry-focused vertical software companies.
Okay.
And it is the major growth trend in B2B SaaS in the last 10 years. Heidi and Brad with WebPT 10 years ago were the beginning of that. But now most new software companies, including most of the companies I've talked to this week, are focusing on an industry. A couple of them, Better Agency, the guys there, Will Shaw and others.
I don't think so.
They're early, and meaning they're almost 1 million ARR, 15 people, but they are the CRM for independent insurance agencies.
Yeah, I do know that. Okay, right. Yeah, I heard of them. I don't know them. Yeah.
Right. So they have a little bit of investment, but they went a long way without much investment, and they're taking a very innovative approach to a normal challenge in the verticals. I love vertical businesses. They're great for founders. You can grow them very fast. You can acquire customers very efficiently. You can solve the whole problem for an industry. Yeah. Everybody looks the same.
A perfect example of that is like Revolution Parts. I was talking to Ibrahim.
Yes.
He's like built a $10 million revenue company, ARR company.
And that is just starting. So they're one of the growers.
Right.
He bootstrapped that.
Yeah.
And now he's got funding. And now he's the top of the hill in the OEM parts,
right.
The e-commerce.
They could easily become a $100 million revenue company.
And what is a $100 million revenue company? That's a unicorn.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, 10x revenues for a rapidly growing company, number one in their position.
Yeah. Scoresby's another vertical. Let me just say a couple other verticals here.
Scoresby with Campus Logic.
Yes, right. Let's see.
Another Greg.
Yeah, all the Gregs here, Prenda's in a vertical. Quick is in some verticals. It doesn't do every industry. Lawlytics is just marketing websites for lawyers.
Didn't Lawlytics just exit or... No. Do I have that wrong?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, there's exits. There's activity all over the place. Congratulations on your exit.
Thank you.
I want to ask you all kinds of questions about that.
You have to have your own podcast.
I know, that's right. By the way, I know your trick here, Hamid. The trick is, so you call people and say, can I get an hour of your time to just ask you any question, and then you tell me the answer, and they say no. And then you say, well, would you be on my podcast?
Yeah, exactly.
And I could do the same thing, and they say, yes, I would be happy to.
An hour of your time is now like, what, $1,000 an hour?
Yeah, right. No, I work with startups and growth stage companies, so actually, most of what I do is pro bono or just, spending time with people. You say you're going to invest $10 million in Arizona startups. I'm investing, 10 million hours?
That's
something
awesome.
like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's really what it is, and that's what I enjoy doing. I've had a successful 30-year career in software, so I'm actually that old, and this is what I get to do for fun, is help the crazy people who are doing the next thing who don't know all the answers yet. And all these people know more about their industry and this month's technique for marketing and sales and, DevOps and everything. But there are many things in marketing, in the phases of growth of companies, in funding and telling your story that have always been about the same, and we can explain what the next phase is and help them get through the current phase. So there are many people doing that in Phoenix who are helping out, and we're kind of the bucket brigade that helps the next generation move faster.
I love that. And I love that you've stayed so active with the Phoenix community, even though you've moved to Dallas now, which
many people would say hyperactive, but yes.
We'll talk about that later. But what I want to, a good segue right now would be to get your background, because you started with Pat Sullivan with ACT in the 80s, and you helped build that company as well. Mm-hmm. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that, because
want
back
some inside story on Pat? I saw the podcast with Pat.
Not the inside story on Pat necessarily, but at that time there weren't best practices on how to build the software company, right? And you had to sort of invent some of those things. And I'm kind of curious about your experience there.
So that is one of the gifts I could bring to modern CEOs. I've done it in a bunch of generations: the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, the SaaS generation, the packaged software generation of the 90s. So I'm from Chicago originally. I went to school in Iowa, got an honors degree in business and economics and Spanish, came back. I didn't know what I wanted to do in 1987. Didn't really fit in a suit, wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And a buddy of mine, my best friend, said, hey, work with me at this software retail store while you're looking for a real job. And the software retail store was called Egghead Software. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
So I was Greghead from Egghead.
I like that.
Yeah, so that, you remember that. Yeah. But and then I literally with a name tag, Greghead, and a suit, and selling packaged software in a box. And I fell in love with software and selling and doing that whole game. Back then, software was not a big thing. It was kind of for the uncool techies, and most people didn't have computers back then. And all that. So that's where I discovered ACT, which had just shipped and gotten on the shelf. And so I played with all the software, and I got really good. I was consulting with people with ACT. I was selling more ACT than anybody in the country, and they noticed me. And then, I managed stores, and then I joined a little ACT company. So I think I was the 12th employee.
Very
and
cool.
I traveled the country and visited all the Egghead stores
To
in the
like
country.
train people
Yeah,
on Act.
yes, that was marketing back then.
Okay.
Like you did a demo and you visited the store.
Yeah,
and
no YouTube back then.
No,
huh?
no. Yeah. Barely cell phones back then. Actually,
Yeah.
no cell phones back then. So
Yeah.
I got my, that's how old I
Late
am, I guess
80s.
I could say. So, yeah, I joined them and we grew that business. So in the early 90s, software wasn't very cool. People kept asking me, when are you going to get a real job? At first I did
by
retail,
people, do you
then
mean like your wife?
No,
Or
no,
like
I
other
wasn't
people?
married. No, she I wasn't married yet. We were all
Okay,
you know.
gotcha.
But like people saying you're working in a retail store and then you're doing the software. So ACT is software for salespeople, the first contact manager.
Yeah.
We came up with that name and took it to the world, created the category, and it went from like Pat's friends and then a few others to 4 million people by the time we sold it to Symantec in 1993.
Wow.
And so Pat sold it to Symantec while my wife Felicia and I were on our honeymoon. He had just been at the wedding. We go to our honeymoon. He come back. He said, guess what? We sold the company. And here you go. So I was product manager. So basically got to lead the charge at Symantec. So that's one of the reasons I'm in Texas, because 3 weeks after we got married, I pulled my wife and said, we're going to California. This is a great opportunity. And I spent 3 years at Symantec and helped grow the business from about 15 million to 40 million there and lead the charge. So I was involved in everything in the business strategically. And I guess I've been at the executive table of software companies since 1992, I guess, something like that.
Okay. You said that that's one of the reasons you're in Texas, but you went to California. So
Yeah.
you're going to have to explain
Okay,
that.
yeah. Well, surprise, honey, we're going to California. And
Yeah.
we had just met in Texas. And so I married Felicia in Texas in 1993. And we were in California a few weeks later after we got married. Surprise, because Pat had sold the company.
Yeah.
And I was the chief leader.
So,
after the entrepreneurs.
so you owed her.
Yes.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah.
So
And-
then later she cashed in on that.
You may have heard this. The spouses of crazy entrepreneurs have a few extra chips to play. And we enjoy Dallas, and so she wanted to be back with family and all of that. So we have tons of friends here. She was just here with me, and we see all kinds of friends of ours. We have plenty of friends in Northern California, too. But we spent 23 years in Phoenix. So,
That's awesome.
So I was one of, I don't know, fewer than 50 product managers in software in the early 90s. There was only so many companies that were that big.
Then you went back and joined Pat again with
Yeah.
Sales Logics, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I helped grow ACT up, and when Pat was first selling ACT and when I was involved, most salespeople didn't have computers. So
Yeah.
this is software for salespeople, and you literally almost had to
Sell
sell
the
them a
computer.
computer and teach them to type and do all that stuff. So, but by the mid-90s, salespeople were starting to get laptops, and they were opening up their laptops because they had email. That's what's the start of that. And so teams were starting to say, can we get all our data in one place? Instead of everybody is an individual Rolodex on their
Yeah.
own laptop, can we get the data in one place? Can we have accounts and opportunities and deals and forecasts, which we now know as CRM? So that was, back then it was called sales automation. So Pat and myself and two other people started Sales Logics here in Phoenix, because Pat was already here in Phoenix. That's why I'm here in Phoenix. And in 1996. And ACT was great for individuals and small teams and small businesses, but it wasn't the mid-market, solution. And there was big enterprise Siebel solutions and enterprise CRM apps. So we became the mid-market CRM, and we grew from the kitchen table, let's do this, and to 500 employees and a public company. And it's hard to do the math, but it was literally
Four or
four
five
and a
years,
half years.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And then we bought ACT back from Symantec.
Wow.
And then I went back there and pulled it out of Symantec and ran the business again for 4 years as the president of that whole business.
Division.
Yeah.
Like the
200 employees.
Wow.
So, and people know me. I'm not like superhuman or anything like that. I'm very fortunate to have started the moment the software business started in the corners, and to be a crazy misfit who would jump on these adventures. But I started selling ACT with my name tag on at Egghead, and 12 years later, I was running the business.
That's incredible. What a fantastic story.
Yeah.
So now And then, okay, actually before now, then you went and did this again with Infusionsoft, which is now Keep.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that too before we jump into scaling? Because I know now, okay, let's talk about Infusionsoft then.
Yeah, so the late 2000s, the client server and Windows software was kind of waning, and the high bandwidth internet and mobile apps and social media and YouTube was just starting.
Yeah.
So that generation hadn't really started yet. I don't know what you were doing at the time, but it was kind of a big turn.
Yeah.
Right? SaaS was not a thing in a big way yet. And I was consulting around and doing a few other startups, and I helped WebPT get started and Mario with 360 Vantage as they got in, and I helped them in both cases on their marketing and growth side, and a bunch of others here. So I started consulting, and then I started helping Clayt with Infusionsoft. And he had kind of, their team had grown the business. It was already up and running and had a little venture capital. So it was over 10 million. And he said, I need somebody, a marketing person who's been through, done it at scale before.
Yeah.
And so there was only one person at Dow who had done marketing
at
scale and helped create categories and all that stuff. And so I joined them in 2011 as the chief marketing officer. And we grew the business up. So it's always funny because when I talk to founders, and especially in hindsight, you just do this, and then they were here, and then they were there, and there's a straight line. In hindsight, it's never a straight line.
Yeah.
And it's always really hard, even when you're successful. And I think a founder this week, I didn't really feel like I was successful until we sold SalesLogix. And we had gone public.
Yeah.
Too. Like we were always behind and climbing the mountain and crazy, I didn't have hobbies or health or much else than work and family for 20 years. So,
well, it's good that you also spent time with family. Because like some founders forget about that aspect of it. And
no, that happens. It's real.
Yeah.
And startups and the scale and all this stuff that everybody thinks is so sexy, it's really, really hard, and it takes years off your life if you do it right. No, I'm serious. And gosh, was it way harder than you thought to create your companies? And
it's definitely hard. I don't want to dismiss it, but yeah, I mean, hopefully it didn't take years off my life.
Yeah.
That would really have sucked. But
well, you should have raised more money. That would have shaved
maybe
a few off then. So.
That's true. Actually, the stress of having to answer to others is additional stress that's much more difficult than. Yeah. So if one thing to take away is that founders who don't want that additional stress shouldn't raise money, because you could be a founder and build a company organically and grow it, and it's stressful, but not as stressful as raising money.
Well, that's one of the things I've learned from you and Bob and Mike and so many others who I didn't really understand the game of. What do you mean you're not raising big money and trying to create a new category in a $100 million company as fast as you can?
Right.
All in.
Yeah.
I don't understand. What is this world you speak of? And you were succeeding, and I got to know you then and help out a little bit in your business, or at least give some two-bit perspective. And I've come to learn, the happiest founders, the happiest teams, the happiest customers I know are the self-funded, headed towards 10 million.
Organic.
Yeah, organic. Yes, organic. And there's all kinds of flavors in between. So I'm really entrepreneur first. Most founders, most businesses are not playing the Silicon Valley VC game. We always had Silicon Valley VC money, and we're playing that game, which means you get it to 100 million and it's multiples and all that stuff. There's all kinds of flavors of the funding game, including efficient funding, growth equity funding, play a little bit and, get it to 10 or 20 and make a turn and everybody's happy. What's no fun is when you raise a lot of money and you say it's going to be big and then it's not big. It's you're in the hole, right? And it's hard to dig out kind of thing. So, I deal with founders all over the place, Texas and Utah and everywhere, who are doing every flavor of how they're creating the business. A service company that makes a product and gets that up, and all kinds of ways.
No, I was going to say you're doing that under Scaling Point now, right? In terms of that's what is Scaling Point? Is it fair to say it's a marketing consulting firm? Or
I would say I It's me.
Okay.
And I work with serious founders who are past the, I have an idea and I'm getting up and running. Generally $500,000 to $5 million in revenues.
Okay.
It's a certain phase. Like when you start a company, you go out and you start doing all kinds of, you sell to whoever will buy and you see what's what and you run around. And all of us as investors and the rest say, let me know when you get to about that thing and you will have learned a lot. So, but at that phase, if they want to keep going and make a bigger company, it's a very different game to get to $1 million just making stuff up and selling it and getting creative. $1 million startup is way different than a $10 million business that's a factory that will go to $100 million.
Yeah, and
the startup and scale is just completely different. And that inflection point is where I work with founders and their leadership teams on the, I would say, the marketing strategy, which is part company strategy that makes marketing possible.
Yeah.
So another way to say it is when you start up, you're many things to many people just to see what's going on. Or most small businesses are like that. For you today, I'm this, and you today, I'm that. But a scalable company that grows fast and pays back investors and changes the world and all of that is very sharp. We just do this just for these people.
Yeah.
And it looks simple, but it's really hard to make that transition. So I go deep with the founders, and it's like a 3-month process there. So that's one of the things I do, and again, more than half of my time I'm spending with founders just helping and connecting and instigating here and in Dallas and Austin.
We have talked about that transition from like doing a bunch of different things and having a bunch of different sort of strategies, to go-to-market strategies or whatever, and narrowing it down to just the one thing in order to grow bigger, which is sort of like counterintuitive, right?
Right. It's counterintuitive for the outside, so people don't even understand that that's what you do.
Right.
It's counterintuitive for our brains because we're in survival mode and we don't want to say no to anything.
Yes.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, this is a universal principle. Every founder, everybody doing this.
Founders think that they have to do more things to be more successful.
Right. Especially technical founders who I think are, I use the analogy of like chefs who can make any kind of food.
Yeah.
So Hamid, is there any kind of software that you couldn't make?
No.
Right. You could make anything. And you told the story of the business was 5 things. And Mike Wolf said, what's the one thing?
Right.
So it's the same thing in politics. It's the same thing in restaurants and music, software, consumer products, that we all start off as many things to many people. And the thing that scales is just this for just these people.
Right.
And so it's a magic trick that works every time. Show me something that's growing very fast, and I'll show you they're just this to just this crowd. And they could be anything to anybody, right? And show me something that's many things, like Amazon, many things to many people. I'll show you their growth spurt to $1 billion was just this for just these
books.
people. Right.
Yeah.
And then you go before that, like in Amazon's case, he looked at 17 different businesses before he chose books.
Yeah.
And he called it Amazon, and he didn't say anything
about
any other businesses.
Yeah.
And then there was DVDs and CDs later, and then
one thing at a time.
Right. Yeah. So it's the big thing here isn't just gosh, this is a magic trick or whatever. When you want customers to line up so you can grow fast, not just go and knock on doors and say, what do you want today? I could do that.
Here's a
No, they need to line up. We only line up for the best at the specialist. That's what Google algorithm is, which mimics our brain. If you want the best equipment here, you don't say, gosh, I'm going to go to somebody that does AV for
everything.
Schools, and no, you're going to go find the
and
best one for the podcast of this. When you have a knee problem and you're an athlete, you don't go to your general practitioner, by the way, who makes the least money in medicine. You go to the specialist. Like, who makes the most money in medicine? It's Tiger Woods' knee doctor.
Right.
And I only serve this micro corner of the market, and I only do this one thing.
One surgery.
Right. So if here's another company here. Let's see. We have look at Prenda here. Prenda, they just do the one thing.
Yeah.
And
micro schools.
Paradox, Trainual, the same thing. eVisit, Quick, they're all raising money. And Quick pivoted.
Yep.
Right. So there's always the story. We could be anything, and then we narrow it down. So like in the metaphor of the chef who can make any kind of food, like only seriously smart people with lots of capabilities can do it, right? Not everybody can make every kind of food, but a chef can do it.
Yeah.
For you today, I'll make that. But a restaurant is one kind of food in one place for one audience.
Yeah.
Like the first move into business is pretty narrow.
Yeah.
And the restaurants that scale nationally are known for one thing on the menu. Just organic burrito, just for hipsters in Colorado, urban hipsters, which was Chipotle for the first 10 years.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's worth more than all Mexican restaurants
combined.
And it's one thing for one
Chipotle
thing.
is an absolute incredible. Another one is In-N-Out, which is like hamburgers.
Right.
That's
Wait,
it.
McDonald's, I thought they owned hamburgers.
Yeah.
Why don't they own hamburgers?
Because they ventured out
things
too
to many people.
Too many things.
Right. And so it's not obvious.
Right.
But if you go back to it, remember the Founder movie with Michael Keaton?
Yeah.
Right? The McDonald brothers, they had a restaurant, was everything to everybody, and the business sucked.
And then
they
just
said, just do
focused on,
this.
Yeah.
And
that
then
was a great movie, by the way.
And it's the exact same thing. And they said, we're just burgers with shakes and fries, which is burgers, to like 30 billion served. And then they added whatever, filet of fish and something else, and they kept going,
McRibs,
which happens. And then when people say we want a burger, where do we go?
In-N-Out.
To make just burgers. And it's the shortest menu, and they don't sell all that other thing.
Yeah.
And so the other side of it is like Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
They started at the Wharf House in Atlanta. They make any kind of food, Roadhouse. There's still a pie lady there, and they serve you whatever you want. And he started 30 years ago, 50 years ago, whatever it was, selling chicken sandwiches to the Delta shift workers. And then he was in, Chick-fil-A started in the mall food court. And the mall food court is the hamburger one, the chicken one, the lemonade one, the hot dog on a stick one, the pretzel one, the specialists there. So Chick-fil-A is now the third largest fast food chain in the country that does just chicken sandwiches.
Yeah.
And I live in Texas now, and if you want to go someplace, not on Sunday, but when they're not open, but if you want to go someplace where there's a long line, right, and happy, smiling people and the customer service, you go to Chick-fil-A, and there's always a traffic jam.
Yeah.
And it's just chicken sandwiches. And they don't sell everything McDonald's does. They do want to have same-store sales. $13 billion business, growing fast. Only Starbucks and McDonald's are bigger. Starbucks, just coffee with your name on it. McDonald's, just fast burgers.
Right.
You got the hint here?
Yeah.
Postscript raised Colin and gang, right? They raised like $30 million.
$30 million, right?
Yeah. So you go to their website. We just do SMS marketing for Shopify.
One thing.
Yeah. Is there? And then you go to a pitch event, and the ones that say we're many things to many people, we're still figuring out. They're the early ones.
Right.
And the ones that are, we know just who it is and just for this, and we got $1 million. Yeah, okay. So I help them make that transition, and it's really hard. It's a simple idea.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to get there.
I see it all the time.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
And at the beginning, you have this problem because even like with the example that you gave earlier in our discussion, the algo face, where
it's many things.
Yeah,
look at all the things we could do.
Yeah, like the technology can be used for a dozen different things, and part of their pitch is that hey, we're going to do a dozen different things, like 4 different things or whatever, and.
Like Brad with Evercast.
Yeah.
We have a technology that speeds up video processing across and now it's just
for Hollywood, and it's just for film editors. And
right. And by the way, if you're in Hollywood and you're a film editor or director, you don't want something that works for
everyone,
podcasters in, Des Moines.
Right.
You want the thing that is best for you. The goal for a scalable company is to be known
one thing
as the best at something specific, something important for someone specific.
Yeah.
It starts in the corners 100% of the time. So you got to go run the experiments, ADD, then you find a thing, and then you double down. Our last president, Donald Trump, he didn't start with mainstream. He started with the corners that nobody could see, the anti-mainstream. And it's the same in music and politics and the rest.
Yeah.
Intensity is the factor. That's where product market fit. That product's amazing.
Right.
Makes companies grow fast, not many.
You want the love, hate, or you essentially want the love and dedication of your audience to come towards the one thing that you're an expert at.
Right. And by the way, if you say, we just do this, people, I'm looking for a special camera to do this. And we're in many, So show me something that is growing, whether a political idea or genre music or a celebrity, but I'll show you. It's very specialist, and they start in the corners, and the intensity is amazing.
How long does it take for a founder for that concept to sink in when you're talking to them? Do they like?
Yeah.
Do you explain this? Like I know you've explained it,
yeah.
Probably hundreds of times, but
Right.
how often do you explain it and the founder is like, "Oh my God, this is amazing," and goes and like takes action the next day on the stuff that on that one concept versus they leave and they still think, I still need to be doing
there's a
four
couple
things.
things going on here. First of all, there's a bunch of people who hear this, and this is product market fit, which
Right.
starts in the corners, and the riches and the niches, and everybody's been saying a version of that. And every single business, everything that's super scale that we all know today, started in the corners, and it was all a small tribe doing just one specific thing,
Yeah.
100% of the time. So it's a universal truth, but it's not obvious. We can't see it. It's hidden in plain sight. And when you start a company, you don't know the answer, even if you say, I know what it is. No, good luck. Get out there and go try and see what it is. And you should experiment probably wider than you thought just to see. But at some point, you can tell them this, right? I used to think the word was focus, which is the answer.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the F word for founders. You can't actually make them say it back to you.
Yeah.
Right? The brain doesn't want to do it. And how do you get big unless you're everything to everybody?
Yeah.
It's very counterintuitive. So they have to get out there and then realize, like Clay did, we have something really powerful. We're trying to be now for all small businesses as opposed to the tribe of power user internet marketers in the beginning where they
Right.
started, where it was the best tool. No other tool came close. They went to all small businesses, and we're many things to many people. And for you today, we're that. And no matter how hard they pushed with email and advertising, the tactical superpowers that they had, it still wouldn't grow fast. Something deeper was going on. So
Right.
that's actually when founders know
Yeah.
there's something there. And there is a true, clear, structured mechanics to it that hasn't changed in forever, because it's how our brains work,
Yeah.
that they're not good at yet. Just like the first time you raise money with a VC, they've done it 100 times. They know everything about it, and you're the first timer naive. But there's a structure to the game about category creation,
Yeah.
about target market, about your messaging, about that structural, strategic stuff that's underneath it. And the other thing is, you don't just say it and the world accepts it, and you don't turn off the lights here. Infusionsoft struggle with a little turning off lights here and trying to turn on here and not making a transition,
Right.
to get from one to the other. And when I came to Infusionsoft, like Clay will remember the discussions. Clay, we're trying to be everything out. It's really messy. Turns up in the answer's in the corner. We're going to find it. I don't know. When he realized the fastest way to get to a $100 million business from 3,000 customers to 35,000 customers was to focus on the corner where we could just sell them all day long and they'd love it, and ignore almost 95% of all small businesses that weren't ready for the power tool yet.
Yeah.
Half of businesses weren't even have a website or email marketing. So this is the misnomer of TAM and the market.
Right.
And so Axosoft, who did you sell to?
Developers.
Okay, developers. There's only, 20 million of them now,
Right.
or 50 million?
But Git developers specifically.
Yes, Git developers, and not all Git developers, but
The ones that wanted a UI or GUI to sort of like manipulate their.
right,
Yeah.
which was in the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
So how did I do that? I just did the shell.
No,
magic
I mean,
trick
like
right-
we had
Yeah.
talked, and you know, like.
But you found that,
yeah.
that's, if you find it, it's there. And so founders are confused between the big small business, the big number, the TAM number,
Yeah.
which is almost completely useless other than to say there's a big market out there.
Right.
The growth starts when somebody says, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
That's product market fit. Oh my God, this is amazing. I'll pay you money, and you can't take it out of, like Brad with Evercast. Oh my God, we were able to make movies during COVID. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And the directors don't have to come to Burbank. Oh my God. And then find more like that and get it going. So that's how things start. And I know the financials and the funding and the team and the product, and I've done everything in the software business, the code. So we actually get in and move mechanics around so they see the fastest way to grow their business and get their vision back on track is to start to narrow down. And it's a really tricky puzzle.
Yeah.
It sounds really easy on the outside, and everything is simple at scale, But getting to simple is a journey, and it's hard.
Yeah, it's much easier to see it in others. The In-N-Out
Yes.
example is
That's part of my magic trick, yes.
or the Chick-fil-A. And if In-N-Out tomorrow introduced chicken sandwiches, it would be sort of like an obvious thing to most people that, I don't know, In-N-Out chicken sandwiches, like your natural knee-jerk reaction would be
Actually,
like, something is wrong here.
Well, see, that's because it owns a position in our
In
mind.
our brain, yeah.
And that's what it is. In-N-Out equals burgers and But can you imagine when they started it and they had a hard quarter and everything? And everybody said, well, if you added hamburgers, you'd sell more.
Or chicken sandwiches.
No, if you added hamburgers to Chick-fil-A,
backwards.
Chick-fil-A, sorry.
Yeah.
No, if you added hamburgers, can you imagine how many times, like with developers, if I added that feature, if I added more,
right,
we could grow faster.
Yeah.
And that's the contradiction.
Yeah.
We don't want more. We want a sharp point when we reach out and buy something. If we're paying anything, Apple, imagine how many products Apple could make. They could make anything,
it's like the Steve
including
Jobs.
apples, better than most people. And they'd make like 4 things.
Right.
So
Steve Jobs was famous at sort of like saying, we're saying like our strategic, what was it? Their abilities or their ability to say, their superpower was to be able to say no to all kinds of great ideas.
Well, and that's actually like a founder who has that insight.
Yeah.
Because it's counterintuitive. And John Scully came in and said, we just need to do more.
Right.
I call it the myth of more. You keep trying to add features and add people and add salespeople and add marketing channels and use more words, and doesn't get you any further.
Yeah.
So there's something deeper going on.
That's another fantastic example, because Steve Jobs left Apple in 84.
Right.
Between 84 and 96 or 7, when he came back, they had gone from just a handful of products to over 130 or whatever it was. And then Steve came back and canceled more than 100 of their products.
Right. He canceled them when they were running out of money. They were almost out of cash.
So it was like the dumbest thing that for a lot of people, including Michael Dell, who was like, "That's just shut down the company and give back the money to people." They couldn't understand the strategy of just focusing on doing 4 things really well.
So here's the really hard thing for founders, and this is why if they can solve the puzzle and keep going, they win the prize. Is because you don't know the one thing until you get on the field. So you have to get on the field and try a bunch of things, which is a little counterintuitive because we're smart and we think we know the answer before we get there, but we don't.
Yeah, you called this the ADD phase,
yes, right? Yeah, you got to get in, try some things. You know the general direction, got to get out there.
Attention deficit.
And then you got to go to OCD. Yeah. ADD starts in OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, which pretty much is what it feels like. How many times did the founders of Chick-fil-A or Steve Jobs say, no, I know we could do that, but no.
I love the ADD OCD analogy because it's crystal clear. ADD, you have no idea what you're doing. Therefore, go ahead and do a bunch of different things at the beginning.
Right.
See what sticks. Right. And then
it's the lean startup. Get out there and see.
And then something sticks, and then you better
double down into the corner. Go to the corner. So the trick is actually to say no.
Yeah.
We could make anything. We're going to take that off. We're going to take that off. We're going to take that off. We're going to take that off until. So you've had all your experiments, right? And how many products have you created in your dev weeks where you go make? 20?
Probably more than 20.
Yeah, experiments. And how many of them turned into products where people paid you?
4 became $1 million plus.
And how many of them turned into something that was quite big and serious? Like
GitKraken. Basically Axosoft / GitKraken.
Right.
But
so that experimentation and that. So that's the same. It's always there. And that's the fun I have. So it shows up as a marketing problem.
Yeah.
I sell it, and now I need to market it. And you can't market a many things to many people idea. Yeah. You can own the best marketing is it's just this. We're the best for these people, and it's amazing.
Yeah,
that's the only thing that gets our attention out there. We don't line up for generalists. Specialists eat generalists.
Right.
100% of the time.
It's very cool.
Unless you're a monopoly like Google or Amazon or the rest.
Well, they start out, like you said, with the one thing, and then they add, and then they become really good at another one thing.
Yeah. Or they keep adding one thing, they get their power and so forth. But a lot of founders say, now when can I get back to adding all those other things, to go to that other market or do that other features, and I got this idea. Usually I say when you hit $1 billion and your competitors have faded away, like Amazon, right? And they're public. Do you remember the other place to get books online?
You mean like Barnes and Noble?
Well, yeah, like kind of, but that was a brick and mortar.
There was a tech books one, which was pretty famous at the time.
Right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But like they also disappeared because Amazon won.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they basically kept going to the top of the mountain with just books, just online, which, by the way, was almost nobody.
Yeah.
10% of people buy all the books, and almost nobody put a credit card in the browser. So it sounded like they were in the corner of a corner of a corner.
Right.
How silly is that? And Walmart.
Yeah.
In northwest Arkansas, in cities where Sears and Kmart wouldn't go for 20 years.
Right.
So it starts in the corners, and that's where the leverage is. You need leverage in your business to grow, and you need a sharp message for people to line up and a focus so you can deliver the thing superbly every time. This is the problem with marketing agencies and service providers that say, we do many things for many people.
Greg, we're going to have to charge for this episode. It's
I know,
just
it's
too
about
valuable to give it to people for free.
No, it's good. No, so just to put it out there here, if people are listening, they want to say, I'd love to put my stuff through Greg's brain and get his perspective. Well, that's where Gregslist came from. And I talk to 5 to 10 entrepreneurs a week. So I'm talking to 500 people a year. So they can reach out to me on LinkedIn or go to greghead.com or Scaling Point, or email me at greg@scalingpoint.com. If you're a founder, I'll give you a half hour and we'll play, and I'll help with connections and other things like that. And this is the fun of this. There's a mechanics that I've learned, and the same laws of nature that you'll see in every marketing book, but nobody's really catching strategy and product and everything. But every founder's different. Every market's different. Every time is different. It's like, how can people play the same golf course over and over? It's not the same golf course. They're different, the golf course. So it's like that. And that's what I have the most fun with. If I could do anything, I'd do that. So they can reach out to me and 2-bit advice.
What are some of the tactical marketing things that you see today that's working well, right? Like, is it the Google ads or,
I spend less time with that, right?
Okay.
And by the way, I think anybody could figure out the tactical stuff. It's all figure outable. Right, just deeper. Who am I for what, and how do I get from here to there? And that's much harder to play with. So, what we can say is every marketing tactical tactic has been beaten into submission to its marginal level of outbound sales, organic, paid advertising, Facebook,
TikTok,
flyers from the sky, social media, content. Right? Every time we add it, Clubhouse, there's a 3-week period where, Francine and Ed are there and taking over before the crowd comes, and then there's no relative advantage there. So the problem is there's 100 marketing tactics and sales tactics, including sales. Just go knock on doors and just go. Like enterprise sales, they don't have to do a lot of air cover marketing. They just send people out and go sell to that big company.
Right.
Yeah. But there's 100 things you could do. But what are the 3 or 5 things, or the one big lever that's important for you? Well, every tactical question, what should we price it? What color should it be? Should it have this feature? All of that. Do we need distributors? What should a salesperson? How much should we pay that? It all depends on those things, the marketing strategic. Who really are we talking to? Those developers who want a graphical interface for Git, right? Which is very specific. So all those tactical questions depend on who specifically are you marketing to, what exactly do you have, and why are you better than the rest? And so then tactics get really easy after that strategy thing. They really get stuck. It's like you get to this is a classic thing. You get to your pitch deck or your backspace on the home page, and you want to rewrite it, and then you realize, oh, this is really hard. I'm many things to many people.
Right.
And when you do the focus game, your execution works way better immediately.
I was talking to Howard Lindsay in another company that he mentioned, which he's an investor in, is Manscaped, which basically took a beard trimmer but focused it on like private parts and has built a $1 billion company out of that, just like literally almost taking the exact same product even, but focusing it on another niche, which,
so this is another confusion for tech and everything else, that the game we play in the minds of the market. Right. There was nothing that occupied the space that Manscaped, right? Didn't even think about that or whatever. But it's not like everybody can make a chicken sandwich.
Right.
So it's not as much product as we think.
Yeah.
And the ultimate game, if you want to be a product creator, that's fine. But if you want to create a big business that's very successful, changes the world, becomes well known, employs a lot of happy people, pays back investors, you have to be known at the best at something, and
Right.
that's a marketing.
That's
game.
a mental game, which
Yes.
starts with the marketing
Right.
messaging.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's move to back to Arizona.
Yeah.
What are you most excited about? Like outside of companies, what do you think like Arizona has going for it right now? When you see us and compare us to like Utah or now Texas, Dallas, because what are your thoughts there?
Well, one is I've been keeping up with founders and leaders here since I left. And by the way, COVID helped me. There's no advantage to being right here at AZ Cowork, where
it didn't matter.
I was able to reside for a year before I left here. But I have my hands in Dallas and Austin and Salt Lake City and Phoenix, and a little bit, and I talk to founders all over the place. And a couple things I see. Phoenix, there's Silicon Valley, which is huge, New York. And then there's the tech hubs like Salt Lake City and Austin and Boulder that are really cool. And they have coastal valuations, and there's tons of funding, and it's going. Phoenix and Dallas are like the next level. Big cities, even bigger cities, oddly enough, where it's very suburban, lots of talent, not known as a tech center, not a lot of funding there. And I think talent, smart people doing things, capable of doing bigger things, is more evenly distributed in regions and gender and age than, Do you get smarter if you go to Silicon Valley? I got to Silicon Valley in the mid-'90s, and I went, oh, they're not any smarter. They're just playing this game hard.
Right.
Yeah. But
and have been doing it a lot longer.
So, and I've been part of the Phoenix ecosystem, mostly in the machine, running these companies, never getting out. Putting 4,000 miles a year on my car, to the airport and back, and to Home Depot and the office. But in the 90s, there was like 10 software companies here.
Yeah.
Viasoft, SalesLogix, JDA,
right.
the others. And now there's 700 and all of that. So I can see, because I left and I've come back, and I can see it from afar, like a parent who you can't see your kids grow as teenagers, but the aunts and uncles could see, oh my God, you just changed in front of me. I could see the change here. Doesn't feel like it, but there's a lot more going on. There's a maturity. The ecosystem of support and the community of help from people who've done it before, like what you're doing, and Greg Scoresby and Mario and Dan and all the stuff that's going on, it's maturing really fast. And ambitious founders that want to shoot the moon and make great companies have more support and advice than ever, and there's more of those. And there's homegrown, software companies and hybrid service companies. There's a lot more going on here than people see, and there's a lot of ecosystem support. By the way, that's what helped Silicon Valley be Silicon Valley, Austin be Austin, Salt Lake be Salt Lake, is the generations really investing in the next one and pulling them up.
Yeah.
So I see a lot more of that going on than just 3 or 4 years ago. And there may be like 50 people here whose main role is to help the ecosystem grow. And that's I could see that. So Dallas is similar in size, number of companies, and similar, well, we don't have a lot of funding. We can't really build it here. There's not a lot of talent, which is kind of a myth. But there's a lot less ecosystem and a lot less community support there. So Phoenix is ahead of Dallas.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
What do you think of places like Austin that are sort of like up and coming, or they have been around for some time because of Dell, right? Like
Dell started it, but Tivoli and a couple other Trilogy in the late 90s has another generation. It really wasn't known as a tech center. By the way, it was known as a creative center.
Right.
If you were a guy and had long hair and a beard and earring in the 90s. Oh, you're from Austin? Actually, I mean, you appreciate this. In the late 80s, at my Egghead software store, if somebody walked in with a beard, you'd say the Macintosh department's over there. And they go, oh, thanks. Right?
That's so funny.
So it's been growing, just like Salt Lake has been growing through the years. And the tech boom that we're going through in the last 12 months, the COVID tech boom, it just pushed tech up everywhere. is helping Austin, and they were ready for it, and there's a ton going on. So there's more funding, more unicorns, more startups, more Tesla going on there. And so it does have the brand. Like you can do the word association. Dallas, big company town.
Yeah.
People from all over. Like, where are you from? Austin, music, creatives,
and now tech,
startups. Yeah. So there's a relation to creatives, and like Brad Feld would say, there's a relation to an open, kind of a revolutionary culture.
Right.
Creating a serious company is a revolutionary act. It's counterculture.
Right.
Counterintuitive, and so that's why in Houston. So there's almost as many software companies in Dallas as there is in Austin. It's not half or whatever.
Really?
But like Austin, they're moving faster. Remember, Salt Lake City and Austin are like 2 million people in the metro. We got 5 million here. It isn't about, and 7.5 million in Dallas-Fort Worth. Wow. It isn't about the size. It just takes a few crazy ones and in the corners.
Right.
To make it happen.
And whether or not they're supported. What do you think? Like, what are you most excited about in the tech landscape in general? Right. Like, so COVID revealed a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
Things like Zoom became sort of like. Do you see any sort of trends that you're excited about that you're seeing things move towards?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest trends in B2B SaaS in the last.
Sorry, we're getting a little static. Is there a phone nearby anywhere?
Oh.
Yeah, thank you.
So one of the trends I play in the software market, and you like electric vehicles and all this cool tech and hardware stuff. I'm kind of playing in this SaaS space and software companies. I could say that there's a fintech boom.
Yeah.
Like SaaS right now, SaaS is everywhere. It's huge. It's big. But it really started, the wave started about 5 or 7 years ago, the big wave. Fintech, that's happening
now.
My God.
What's happening that's interesting in fintech? Is it the cryptocurrency stuff? Is it decentralized finance? Or like?
I think it's not just the abstraction of finances from banks. It's the applications that are happening almost everywhere. In vertical markets and
give
everything.
Examples of what you mean.
I'm not a fintech expert, but even like Divvy in Salt Lake City, which is sold for $2.5 billion, right? A credit card for expenses. So you give your employees a credit card for their expenses, and they get the data, and all of a sudden they can do completely different things with it because they have the data for your company.
Yeah.
So and in B2B SaaS, verticals are huge. And by the way, vertical companies can be bigger, faster than a lot of horizontal companies.
Yeah.
Like WebBT is worth more than your Kraken horizontal.
Yeah.
It's not industry specific, but it's more than $100 million business now and just started in the corner. So those are great businesses for entrepreneurs. So I really care about the entrepreneur. And they say, I need to do big funding. Hold on there. Let's figure out what you're really doing and find the funding or not funding that's right for you. And there's a lot of people that can make great companies very fast and have a strategic outcome, life-changing for them, change in industry in 5 to 7 years. And even Saeed Islami with Visual Live.
Yeah.
There's another cool technology here in Phoenix with his HoloLens.
Yeah, big time. Which
augmented
just
reality.
Got bought by Unity.
Yeah, he just sold it.
Yeah.
That's right. And by the way, no outside funding.
Yeah.
And
in
a really
less than
faster.
like 5 years, right?
Less
like
than 5 years. He
his
changed an
story is
industry,
absolutely
life-changing, wealth,
amazing.
and he'll do another one and all that stuff. So that's really cool. I think the virtual reality, some of the fintech, AI, which is super powerful, newfangled stuff,
right,
is starting to make its way into practical applications where people say, well, AI might be cool, but what exactly are we going to do with it? And so it's getting plugged into use cases now that we couldn't even imagine. So like AI, remember the Google AdWords console with all of its variables and Google ad specialists would twiddle all the settings and be experts in that. You don't get to see that anymore. AI just does it.
Right.
So there's a use case where AI is just going to do it way better. Like if you human touch it, you're just going to slow it down. So we're not there yet. So we are with Google AdWords.
Right.
But we're not there yet with our Tesla, autonomous driving.
Self-driving.
Yeah, we're not completely there.
According to Elon, we're just 3 weeks away.
My son would say it's there and all that, and I don't know where you are.
Oh,
but
your son works at Zoox, was it? What was the company that got? Doesn't he work for one of the?
He works for the Boring Company.
Oh, okay.
But
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, but he's a techie and is young, so he's going to say, "Of course, it's cool, yeah, Dad. I can't believe."
According
you're not...
to Elon, we're like a month away from having full self-driving cars for the past 5 years.
Right. So all that autonomous intelligence and so forth. In some specific use cases, it's starting to come in and say, oh my gosh, that's way better than having data lakes and business intelligence and data scientists doing incremental rules. How about the AI can run it? So that's actually happening in a practical way.
Do you have any concerns that AI is going to displace jobs faster than we can sort of convert them? Because in tech, things do happen very, very quickly, right? Yeah. If we figure out this whole full self-driving car thing, which I think Tesla is very close to figuring out, and others are as well, but there is a good chance we might displace, 5 to 10 million jobs within 5 to 10 years.
Right. Yeah, and I can argue both sides of that, which is we've been displacing things for 150 years.
But not usually that quickly.
I get it.
Yeah,
and so, we're displacing white-collar jobs like our Google ad specialists and trucks and all kinds of things. And now in our labor challenge, it's hard to get an engineer anywhere. It's hard to get, it's a talent war in tech in every region, including Phoenix. And it's hard to get people to show up for work at your restaurant. I couldn't get an Uber from the airport. There was no drivers available, $75 for a $30 ride normally, couldn't get it. So there's challenges getting labor. So we're going to see more robotics and automation and technology applied to things where we can't apply people. So I think it's, I don't know where that's going to end up.
Yeah.
I don't know where, the things that robots can't do very well, pick lettuce, wash cars, I don't know, pick up the dishes people they don't want to do as much anymore.
Right.
They'd rather not do that.
Right.
So I don't know there's not a utopia that I see where, AI could do what I do, and so then I can sit back and not do anything.
Yeah, the Wall-E utopia.
I don't know. Sitting back and not doing anything is no fun. I did that with COVID, for a little while. Hey, that's not fun.
That's boring.
Yeah, so I don't know where that's going to end up. But I do see AI in use cases starting to impact it. Isn't it interesting? I've heard a few of your podcasts. Actually, I've heard all of them, all my friends. I actually know everybody on your podcast except for the ASU scientist and so forth, and worked for two of them, Clayton and Scott, and worked with a bunch of them. But I don't know where I was going with that,
But no, I mean, it's just the trend in technology, which is absolutely fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Excuse me here. Remember when technology was all good?
Yeah.
In the 90s, like the magic you could do on your PC, it was like 100 times better than the old way to doing it. Right. And it was really magical, and everybody was excited. And even 5 or 7 years ago, it was all good, and now it's not all good. It's pretty amazing. So I'm open to some of this is going to have negative consequences that we can't really solve. I mean, social media is having negative consequences that we're not totally accounting for. Mental health and other ways of doing it.
Also, incredible concentrations of power as a result of all this stuff, too.
Right. So much for democratizing the world.
Right. Both in terms of financial power and money, but also with like literal power of some of these tech companies is absolutely insane.
Right. And do we see any answer to that? Are they going to become less powerful?
The answers are not easy for sure.
No. So I don't know how we solve that.
Yeah.
Other than help the little guys keep moving forward and start new things. The reason I help the crazy founders create things that change the world is everything we've got around us was made up.
Yeah.
And now it's true. Scottsdale. I don't know. Was there a Scott of Scottsdale who said, We ought to start here. There's always a person in the beginning who says, let's do this thing.
Yeah.
Let's make it cracking. Let's do this thing. There's always a crazy person at the beginning. And everybody says, stop doing that. Their mom says, that would be crazy.
Right.
Why don't you get a real job? And you said, I got this thing. It's always, it's kind of a little mini revolution. And so I'm for those people. We are in Arizona today because it was created by people who did good things before us, and likewise Texas and everywhere else. Why is Salt Lake City and Austin and Phoenix and Dallas different? It's because the people who got it through the generations, it's the people.
Yeah, it always comes down to somebody pushing something in a particular direction.
Right.
I was just talking to Chris, or actually Danny, the ASU scientist, about that. Like, could we wait on? Is it a foregone conclusion that 100 years from now things will be better than they are today, or technology will advance more than it is today? And the answer to that is, in my opinion, absolutely not. And we can see examples of things going backwards in so many different fields.
Right.
And it's usually like someone or some company or something that pushes it in a particular direction and makes that makes their will essentially happen, which is what allows us to now re-land rockets and stuff. And we don't want to say his name because he comes up in every freaking podcast. But
did you have his name tattooed on
your
arm?
Yes, I have this ginormous back tattoo of Elon's face. But no. But it is like individuals who are making, and that's what you're saying, is that you want to support those crazy people who are like pushing the envelope and trying to make a better future.
Right, and it's really hard, and you don't know really what's next, but they're committing to do the big thing even before they know what the real game is that they're doing it. So, all of everything that's been created, somebody was there in the beginning, and everybody said, stop doing that.
Right.
Like just everything.
Yeah.
So, the crazy people create the future, and I think my version of the world is 90% of people live in the world, and we drive down the streets and we take a right and do our thing and live. And 10% of people say, I can't believe whoever put this street here, put this street man, if we could just move the street, I would just, right? And and so it's an affliction. And if you've done the entrepreneurial thing and made things happen, like the first 100 people we showed ACT to, they said, I would never use a computer. Why would somebody use that? That's stupid. And then eventually they said, oh, this is amazing, and thank you for doing that. And we changed that. And so that's really fun to put a dent in the universe and make something that, help move the world forward and employs a lot of people. And awesome. I have so many friends just from working with, an amazing teams at ACT and SalesLogix and Infusionsoft, so many great people.
Yeah.
And to create an opportunity factory like I was a benefit of companies growing 100% a year. If you could hang on, you could run something if you didn't let go.
You got to get on that rocket ship when it launches. Very cool, Greg. So many great conversations.
Fun.
And hopefully people will enjoy listening to this. Anything you wanted to cover that we didn't already touch on?
Well, if people want, just a reminder, if people want to run their startup idea or their company, or what is this marketing tactic, or do you know somebody?
Scaling Point.
Just Greg at scalingpoint.com, and
perfect.
I'll send you the Calendly link, and we'll have a call or a Zoom or whatever. Hopefully someday I could interview you and hear the story of Axosoft, all the rest of these. And maybe I'm the guy that gets to interview LaDan, who is also part of this journey. You're not capable of doing that.
I've asked her to be on the podcast, and she's turned me down.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm never going to come on. I'm like, what? This is great. Yeah. But she's turning me down. In fact, she turned us down today. She happened to stop by, and Adrian gave her a hard time too, and she was hell no.
So it's great to be back in Phoenix. Everybody wanted to meet
Good
this
to have
week.
you
The weather
back
was
in
great.
Phoenix.
The suns are going.
Yeah.
And housing prices are crazy. And so, we'll see where that goes. And I like to move around the country, and I'll be back.
Meet with crazy people.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Greg. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Hamid. Thanks for everything you do for the community. We love AZ Tech Week and this podcast.
My pleasure. All right, you made it to the end of the episode. I would love to get your feedback, so take a moment to leave a genuine review in your favorite podcast app. That also helps us reach more people. Speaking of reach, if you like a particular episode, be sure to share it with someone who you think would enjoy it. See you next time.
I'm going to be Dallas and Phoenix superstar helper, and I'm going to move. I'm personally going to help move the Dallas ecosystem, and I had some fun helping to move this one.